never put there.
Hey, wait, listen. Can I talk while I'm talking?
Yes, sir, sorry.
So I understand he was wanted for arrest by Gwinnett County. And so he was arrested then. And so you're saying because he was arrested, but he wasn't arrested for criminal trespass.
The will doesn't say that Barbara is supposed to live in the house. The will says the assets will be divided. So, but they show the will and the police leave.
Oh, hold on, folks. I don't. Clerk, if you can give me access to mute people, I'd greatly appreciate it. Due to the allegation of a criminal trespass that was taking place back on May 4th, 2023. And this has apparently occurred in DeKalb County. More specifically, well, I'll let you guys talk about it in the specifics here, but I just want to confirm, Ms. Maddox, you've emailed evidence. You also have several witnesses. And my understanding is that both of these particular respondents, this comes from the same date in occurrence, correct? Same date of incident and occurrence, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So what we will do is get folks to do their opening statement. And because there are technically two respondents, they will have an opportunity each to say their particular piece because they each have a case and they're each potentially facing arrest individually, right? Not just jointly. And so what I will do now, Ms. Maddox, is give you an opportunity to give it a brief statement about this allegation and what happened. So it's about 7:40. I'll give you about 7:43, 7:44 to tell us a little bit about the background.
Yes, sir. On December 19th, 2022, we executed an eviction of Barbara Kaplan and Joshua Price from my mother's home through the marshal's office, DeKalb County Marshal's office. In May, they broke back in. When we had the eviction done, we went in that day. My husband, who's one of the witnesses, and I, and along with some additional help, boarded up the windows from the inside, changed locks on the doors to secure the house. And then, of course, most of my mother's belongings were removed to the yard. Barbara and Joshua have taken control of those possessions, although I do have an order from a Judge McNeil on September 1st, 2022, that said that we were to take possession. It actually says my uncle, but I had been substituted in as my uncle. My uncle, James Darden, was my mother's guardian while she was still alive. My mother passed away July of last year. But since that time, they have lived in the house illegally. After the eviction, they have brought other people into the house. We found, when we tried to go in and clean up the house before they broke back in, drug paraphernalia. So we know all kinds of things were going on in the house that were illegal in nature. Mr. Price seems to think that he can interpret the will. I am executor of my mother's will, and that's part of the evidence I submitted by oath of office where I was sworn in as executor. And he has denied me access to assets that belong to the estate. So in addition to breaking in, he also has taken, including an 1850 rifle, 1850 is in your 1850 rifle, that my father intended to be left to his grandson. Joshua Price has taken control of that as well. He seems to think he can interpret the will his way instead of the way that my parents had it written. The will does not say that they have a right to live in the house. It only says that the assets are to be divided between me and Barbara Kaplan. And I would like to have them removed from the house, this time for good.
Okay. Let me hear from Ms. Kaplan.
They're speaking to you, Bob. Do you have anything to say? I took care of my parents and worked full time. They never came up.
I can't hear you, Miss Campbellman. You're gonna have to sit up and speak into the
They
camera.
would come up and help out when my father was still alive. I worked full time and took care of both my parents full time. No one down there came up and helped me at all. When Daddy died, they came up and dumped the dumpster, took my mother for a couple of days and brought her back. They didn't help me do anything. I had to find people to help me take care of her in the house and clean it back up after they trashed our house and tore it apart. She never once came to the house and helped out at it once. Not once. I had to cut back my hours, take care of her. She had dementia starting. She had a silent stroke. There's no reason why I should be. I am on the will. I have the signed will right here.
The one by the judge.
By the judge that she signed when she was James was 3 years old.
Can I speak, Your Honor?
Well, hold on. I'm just waiting for Miss Campbellman to
She
finish.
made up stuff to make it look.
Calm down. He gets a little emotional about this, sir.
Where
Okay.
was she? Where was everybody? Did my uncle backs out and leads to her?
Hold
I
on,
think
hold-
this is
Calm down.
she shouldn't even be allowed to take care of this because too much going on. We should have somebody else appointed to take care of the estates.
All right.
She
Mr.
threw me out.
All right. All right, Miss Campbellman.
Calm down.
Hold on. Do you have anything specific regarding the allegation of criminal trespass that you'd like to say?
I didn't even get to hear it because the internet went down.
Her, what she was saying is she doesn't feel she's trespassing in the house that she owns.
And people were breaking it.
Okay, well, hold on. Wait. Listen. I have to still do this in order to spite people's emotions. That doesn't give you the justification of just doing whatever. So, Ms. Campbellman, if you're finished, I'm going to give Mr. Price a statement opportunity to do it as a opening statement as well. It's 7:44. I'll give you about 3 to 4 minutes, sir. So go ahead.
I'm under the impression that Ms. Barbara Kaplan owns the house. I was living there before the mother died. And in regards to what Ms. Mary said, her uncle only had rights under medical, is what the paperwork says. Legally, he was only allowed to make medical decisions. Okay. Barbara was living there prior to her mother's death, been there her whole life, which I've submitted the document. And she has the signed will by the judge. So I have no reason not to believe. And then furthermore, the pictures I emailed about the eviction, her uncle renounced his role in the same day he renounced his role. Mary paid for the eviction to have it illegally removed.
And throughout
And
all my parents'
we
stuff,
didn't get this notice for this court date until this past Saturday and didn't have time to prepare. But every communication with her, I've recorded. Everything's been documented on our end. You know, if you look at some of the pictures that I've submitted, that's not how an eviction is handled. They broke the antiques. They broke, even Mary was crying about it. I got video of that because the house was wired for sound with cameras. You know, she was misled on the eviction as well by the DeKalb County Marshal. They destroyed our stuff, but she paid for that eviction the same day her uncle renounced his role of the will because he knows wrong than done. You know, she had all of our stuff put out and she didn't even put out all of our stuff. People were stealing what was in the yard, breaking stuff. For 4 days, I was at that house after they legally kicked us out. And I saved and salvaged stuff for 4 days in the rain by myself. Even the neighbors didn't even help to save their stuff and put it in storage. This is a civil matter, in my opinion, but I'm not the judge. But Barbara's been there for over 20 years and got documentation to prove it. You know, I've submitted her IDs, mail from through the years to show it. She's been on the deed 3 times. And that's on y'all's own public website.
Okay. All right. Are you guys?
If anything,
Is that
Mary is
it?
only trying to. She's called us, and the only thing she's interested in is a ledger from the father. The house is tied up in probate. Okay, you know, I've been maintaining it and remodeling. I've just painted the whole inside of the house. I was in the process right now of doing the flooring. And is it costing them anything? No.
Okay.
That's hurtful. You've been busting.
All right. Now that's a hold tight. That's enough. So Miss Maddox, we're going to get in your evidence here. Now I know you've got a lot of witnesses. And I just want to make sure that I've gathered here exactly what we're doing here, because you've got criminal trespass allegations back in May. Mr. Price was allegedly arrested that day, right? So that means they can't have a case against him. It's already been dealt with and adjudicated. You understand? So if from the date of the allegation that you're talking about, I've read the report. He was arrested that day. It says that he was lodged into DeKalb County Jail.
He was arrested for another matter and expedited to Gwinnett County for transferring a gun illegally. I suspect it was one of my father's guns.
I don't know. I just know that I'm looking at a police report that indicates that he was, from this incident, was arrested. He said specifically they observed 2 trespass forms posted on the window. How about they said, however, does not specify any names. Right?
That's because it had faded by that point, unfortunately.
No, it was never put there.
Hey, wait, listen. We're not talking while I'm talking.
Yes, sir, sorry.
So I understand that he was wanted for arrest by Gwinnett County. And so he was arrested then. And so you're saying because he was arrested, but he wasn't arrested for criminal trespass. And so that's the reason why you want him now arrested for criminal trespass. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And I just want to make sure that I understand. These criminal trespass warrants were issued and the police came, but you're saying that the police failed to arrest them because there was just a faded document?
Well, they show the will and nobody ever reads the will. The will doesn't say that Bart has a right to live in the house. The will says the assets will be divided. So, but they show the will and the police leave.
Hold on, folks. I don't, clerk, if you can give me access to mute people, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Judge, you have co-host permissions. I'm not sure why you're not able to do it on both screens.
I got it.
But I did it for you.
This is your sister. I did see the order for you to own the property because she didn't appear. I did see that. That wasn't necessary. I did see the will. You guys are entitled to your mother's assets 50-50. You just happened to, for some reason, court order, because she didn't show, they gave you the authority, and then you submitted an eviction, right? Is that correct?
The eviction was started by my uncle, who was mom's conservator, her guardian, and because she had to be removed from the house because of an accident that happened in the house. And they basically put my name in because it got caught up in COVID and was drug out, and my uncle was starting to have health issues.
So you got to, because I'm not, I understand your witnesses, and we can get to the criminal trespass. I've got a report here. So I'm just trying to understand the background here. There was a writ of possession that was issued, which I saw, right? And that writ of possession was, this was against Dr. James, conservator for Barbara Kaplan and Joshua Lee Price. That was back in September of 2022. So we're now a year later, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you're saying that as a result of that writ of possession, they should have been evicted. And then as a result, they came back in and you want them arrested.
Correct.
And this has been multiple times that they've been in.
They moved in and stayed, and we've not been able to get them removed.
And tell me why you have not been able to get them removed.
They flash the will to the police, and the police leave. Now, I should probably tell you, I live 3 hours away.
Mm-hmm. So who do you, and not that it matters, but I'm just curious, what is your intent with the property?
We want to clean it up and sell it, and proceeds will be split between us. That's what the will specifies, and that's what I intend to do as the executor. That's my responsibility.
Right. I mean, I saw the will. You don't get you don't get to take everything.
Now,
okay.
Josh states we gave permission. We did not give permission for him to do work on the house. We said the house needed to stay empty.
Okay. And when is the last time you? Okay, so you're saying they should have been arrested in May because they had been evicted in September and then moved back in.
The eviction actually took place in December.
Okay, because it took a minute for it to be executed. I understand. I understand. And then they were evicted.
They were evicted.
And then they want them. So you want your sister arrested to go to jail, and you want Joshua to go to jail as well. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. So who specifically? I'm looking at your evidence. So what will your witnesses testify to them being in the property? Is that what you need?
Being in the property, having wild parties in the property, having drug deals come in and out of the property, having prostitutes come on the property, being up late at night, making loud noises, disturbing the neighborhood. They have a killer pit bull that scares the neighbors half to death because they have small children.
Let me ask you this question. Have you filed another writ of possession?
No, I have not.
And why not?
Because we weren't sure if a second one would be enforced since the first one hasn't been enforced.
Well, the first one was enforced because they were evicted.
But they came back, and when we called the marshal's office, they told us to call the police. We called the police, and the police haven't removed them.
Because it's a halfway civil matter. And I know it's not a full civil matter because they've been evicted once, and then there's the allegation of criminal trespass. But at the same time, but you're saying when they moved back in, they never had the authority, is what you're saying.
When they moved back in, they just moved back in and took over and were not removed.
Yeah, I understand.
And
all right, well, you can bring out your first witness.
Okay. They are the neighbors, either Nicole Burton or Matt Jeffries.
Okay.
Actually, can I have Ricky Maddox, my husband, come first?
That's what you will have Ricky come in. I will tell you whoever is there will be cross-examined, whoever you allow to come in. So if we can bring in Mr. Maddox. All right, Mr. Maddox, if you can unmute. It's that button that looks like a microphone.
Is that it?
All right, let me get you under oath.
Okay.
Raise your right hand. Okay. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, on a penalty and perjury of the law?
I do.
All right. Now, Miss Maddox, I'm going to let you ask your husband some questions. They need to be open-ended questions. You cannot ask direct examination. Cross-examination type questions, meaning that you need to say, what do you know? On this date, what did you see? Not like, isn't it true that, because that is more of a cross-examination type questions, right? And so I will allow you to do a direct exam of him. I'll give you about four minutes or so, 5 minutes. It doesn't need to be lengthy, and you can start now.
Ricky, please tell us what happened the day of the eviction.
Oh, we showed up at the Thornwood Drive residence, and the marshal's office showed up. We had, you had hired people to remove the contents, and I had help there to assist. And we, after the eviction, we went in and changed the locks on the front door and secured the house by placing OSB board and plywood across the interior of all the windows on the lower level and windows on the second level that might be accessed from the garage roof. That's basically it.
And what happened on May 4th when we got the call from Josh and Barb?
They said that someone had broken, removed the air conditioner under the carport and broken in the house. And you asked Barbara if she was in the house, and she said yes. And she said that they had removed the locks from the door, and we told them to put the locks back on. They were supposed to be, the locks were supposed to be replaced, and that they were not supposed to be in the house.
Tell us about our call to the police.
I think it was the next night or whatever. We had found out from the neighbors that they were still in the house, and so we called the police. And then we were first initially told that they had been removed from the house, and that they were not still in the house. And then when we went up to be sure the house was secure, we found that Josh had been removed for a warrant for some prior arrest or something unrelated to this, and that Barbara and the dog were still in the house, and we called the police again.
And what happened to that Sunday when we called the police again?
There was 2 police officers showed up, and they talked to Barbara on the telephone, and she came outside and she showed them a paper that supposedly was a copy of the will that we had been requesting since shortly after your mother's death, and she had not made available, but that's what we were told that it was. And we were not expecting to do more than just secure the house. We did not know they were in the house, so we didn't have any paperwork with us. And so therefore the police wouldn't remove her at that time.
I just want to briefly interject. Has the probate court seen this will?
Yes, we had to probate from a copy, but we have a sworn affidavit from the attorney that prepared the will that it is the correct will.
So the probate court has already seen this will?
Yes, it's been probated. I've been sworn in as executor.
Okay. But before you were sworn as executor, did they see this will?
No.
Not the will Barbara has, but a copy that had been provided to your uncle by your parents.
And it's the exact same one?
It is.
I think with the exception of a clerical error, which the attorney explained to the satisfaction of the probate judge.
And that was before or after, Ms. Maddox, that you received the authority to have full rights to this property?
That was...
Because that order was signed September 1st, 2022.
The will was executed in, I think it was February, I believe.
When you say the will, that's not the will, but what are you saying?
Oh, no, the will. Now, the eviction was in December.
Mm-hmm.
The will was probated in, I believe it was February. May have been March, but I think it was February.
Of the following year?
Of 2023, this year.
You can finish.
We had problems with, my uncle was conservator, couldn't get released, and we were caught up in paperwork in the court trying to get me named as executor. And I am specified in the will to be executor.
Has the probate court completed everything?
Yes, sir, they have.
They have completed everything.
I have an employee identification number. I've set up the bank account and monitoring everything associated with it.
And I only, because this is important, are there any pending issues or things, may not ask her, but by Ms. Campbellman, your sister?
None that I am aware of.
Well, yeah, you haven't been able to get the property. The property, and there's been no funds dispersed
Yeah, there's been no funds dispersed. That's true. We have not been able to get access to the property on Thornwood Drive.
And so we can't sell it. We can't.
All right, I know you got a lot of witnesses, but I got a lot of questions. Hold on, Mr. Maddox. So the property that was put on the street, was that your mother's property?
Not all of it. Some of it was my mother's. Some of it belonged to my sister.
Was some of that property that was your mother's, she'd be also entitled to as well as you?
Some of it she would, but she's taken just about all of it.
I got it. Okay, continue with Mr. Maddox if you have any other questions for him. Any other questions for Mr. Maddox?
Ricky, also tell us about what happened when we tried to acquire the property for they have in the storage buildings that we paid for.
Well, they had moved the property after the eviction to 2 storage units, and they had and you had been paying the monthly storage fee, and Mr. Price and the management at the storage unit had run into some difference of opinions or whatever, and so they rather than to continue in business with him and the units in his name, they chose to evict him. They refunded 1 month's storage fees and chose to evict him. And they said that if he would put the units in your name, they wouldn't have to, foreclose on the unit, and he refused to do that. Initially, he had told us that he would sign it, and then, but he didn't, and so they have, I guess, confiscated. Well, I don't know if it's the proper legal term, but anyway, they have confiscated the contents of the 2 storage units.
Okay, any other questions?
I think that. Also, would you also explain our situation, how far away we are, and kind of what led up to Mom not moving down here with us?
Well, she had made a decision after your father died to stay in Atlanta, and then she had signed a power of attorney previously with her brother, the James Darden, and after she wound up in the hospital from some injuries to the head, he stepped in, and he had been advised by the patient representative from the hospital and the elder care representative from DeKalb County that she was not to go back to that house. They had also had some prior charges against Miss Kaplan for elder abuse, and I understand that was later converted to disorderly conduct charges, and which she pled out. And but anyway, that resulted in her being moved to a rehab facility in Eastman for a short period of time, and then he chose to transfer her to a nursing facility here in Cochran. But that was done he made those decisions based on the advice from the patient representative at Northside Hospital, and also a DFACS elder advocate in DeKalb County.
Okay. All right. Now, I know you guys, any other questions specifically about the event that we're talking about here in May?
No, I think that's pretty much
okay.
All right now.
All right. So now, Mr. Maddox, I'm going to give Miss Kaplan or Mr. Price an opportunity to cross-examine if it's necessary. Mr. Price, do you have any questions for Mr. Maddox? You're on mute, though, so I can't hear anything you're saying. You need to unmute.
During this time frame, we were kicked out December 19th.
Wait. You got to have questions for Mr. Maddox. Do you have any questions for him? If you have no questions, it's fine.
Yes, I do have questions. Have y'all
For
had a
Mr.
proper
Maddox.
reading? Yes, for Mr. Maddox. Have y'all had a proper reading of the will and to
One
turn
question
the
at a time.
definitions of the legal word? The question is, have y'all had a legal reading, and what part does he play in this? He is not in the paperwork.
I was not present at the reading of the will, but yes, it was.
Hold on, don't talk over him, Mr. Price. Continue, Mr. Maddox.
It was read, and my wife was present, and her aunt and uncle was present, James Darden and Pat Darden, and I think Barbara's son, James Kaplan, was present by Zoom.
Any other questions for
him? Ricky, how many times did I call you to try to get y'all to come to the storage unit to get y'all stuff? I've been very diplomatic about this to save Mary Maddox and Miss Kaplan's family, the Nutting family's property. Who's helped me do this? How the stuff get to the storage? Who did it? Because when y'all wrongly kicked us out,
so hold on, it's got to be a question. You're not testifying. So do you have any other questions for Mr. Maddox, or we can conclude then?
Yes. What stuff did you take off the property during that eviction? I want that on record.
I don't remember.
I got the video of it.
Oh wait, let him talk.
There was nothing removed the day of the eviction because
he's purging.
Mr. Price, you don't have to tell me that he's perjuring himself. Let him finish talking.
Oh, the day of the eviction, there was nothing removed because the advice of the marshal's office was that she had to be given 24 hours to remove any of her personal property, and it would be the next day before anything could be removed.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Price? Last question for Mr. Maddox.
It's really not involved in me, but I've been the one saving their property and remodeling their house and supplying everything for free. And
you have a question?
They did us wrong.
Do you have a question?
No, sir. I already
have any more questions.
Got what I needed. I got what I needed. He just said what he said when I got video proof that he's lying.
Miss Kaplan, do you have any questions for Mr. Maddox?
They took weaponry off that property that very same day.
There's no other questions.
Why was my birth certificate, my license in the trash can, along with James's airline?
Hold on. The administrator of that will is held
responsible. Wait, no, Mr. Price, Mr. Price, your question time is over.
Dude, they sold my stuff. They didn't look at the pictures. They didn't even put it all out. That was illegally handled.
All right. Okay. So again, folks, we're trying to have an organized and orderly presentation of evidence. We can't talk over people. We're on Zoom. It makes it really difficult. Miss Mary Maddox, do you have any other questions for Mr. Maddox? So I can let him.
No more questions for Mr. Maddox, sir, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm going to be honest with you, folks. I'm hearing the evidence, and more I'm hearing it. I have more and more questions, Miss Maddox, as well as Mr. Campbellman and Mr. Price. Miss Maddox, tell me, do you know when they moved back in or went back into the property?
They called us on May 4th, 2023, and they said they were in the house. Since they didn't have access with a key, we know they broke in.
So they told you they were in the house?
They told us they were in the house. We said, you need to leave the house. They did not.
Okay, and so they had been out the house since December and then returned some months later, is what you're understanding?
That's correct.
All right. What were your other witnesses testify
to? Most likely to the fact that they are in the house and the difficulties they have created in the neighborhood.
I will tell you, we don't necessarily need to hear about the difficulties. We really need to hear about the criminal trespass. Let me figure this out. Mr. Price, can you unmute for me?
Say again, sir?
Are you in the subject property that you were previously evicted from?
We went back to that property because every homeless person in town was robbing the family house, and the air conditioner was already pressed in and an entry was made. They were starting to strip the electricity, the wires from the house. So yes, with her being Barbara being half owner, not the liquid assets to be separated, but the actual house is not to be sold, and that is stated in the will. Oh, I got a witness here too. So file these papers for us.
Okay.
That, you know.
I got it. So folks, hold tight.
Yes, sir. They just don't like me.
I got it.
They pushed their sister around, and they intend.
And I don't mean to mute you, but what I want to be able to really address, folks, is that you guys have a serious family issue that's bullied over here in the criminal court. That's the serious concern. In truth, I know it's been some time since they were initially evicted and then they came into the subject property. Whether or not that rises to the level of another need for a civil matter or another need for the criminal warrant, for the criminal trespass is something to be considered and decided, because though you're saying they had no rights, they subsequently they left and then they came back apparently months later. Obviously that was after this order or the probate was being completed and you were identified as executive. But this is my bigger issue. And this is what makes me a little bit hesitant here, because Ms. Maddox, you have the responsibility, I guess, of being the executor and subsequently trying to, I guess, do best with the assets that your mother has left. You're finding it in your best interest that your sister living at this subject property is not the best interest of the estate. And as a result, you sought to evict her, which would very well be your right as executor, right? The issue that I'm finding, though, is that you guys are both have a joint interest in the same subject property that you've evicted her from, which she has right, I guess, to the value of, but maybe not possession of, is what you're saying, of the property. And so you're saying you can't live there, but you can get paid. We don't know what that amount is because you don't know what the value of the house is because you haven't sold it. My other concern, though, is when this initial, and I'm not trying to rehash issues, but I just think it's interesting that property that was of your mother's that would be of the estate was subsequently evicted and put on the street, that you would also have interest in the estate would have an interest in maintaining and selling, which becomes an issue as well. Because there would actually be some concern about, obviously, those properties, if not damaged or lost to you as well, Miss Maddox, as well as your sister. And so then it becomes about possession. And then you're saying she should be arrested being in possession of the subject property, which she has a equitable interest in, but she doesn't have a possessory interest in. And what does that all lead me to say? What does that all lead me to say? Well, one, it leads me to say that I'm frustrated because I see two family members that obviously are not getting along and obviously have the same interest in the same property. It just so happens that the court awarded you, Miss Matt, for good reason or bad reason, the authority over the property. Whether or not I'm in position to accurately say that this is a full criminal trespass without everything else being taken in consideration, I can't say this criminal trespass and ignore the fact that she's got an equitable interest in the property. ignore the fact that as well, everything else is going on. I'm not saying, Miss Maddox, that she subjectively has a right to stay there, but I don't know, because of the distance that has happened when she moved and now that she's moved back in, whether or not it would be your responsibility as well to have her evicted. These are common issues that come up. And otherwise, I'm just going to tell you, criminal trespass is only going to remove the people. It does not do the same as an eviction where the officers come and remove everything out of the property, which is usually one of the reasons why officers do not remove people from properties in these situations, because there is not, people become tenants or tenants at sufferance or possessory, squatters, but they still have rights, right? They just can't be immediately removed without certain other processes, particularly because they were already evicted, but that was evicted a long time ago. So it wasn't like they were evicted and they came back on the property 2 days later. This was 5 months plus later. And then in conjunction with everything else that's going on, I am going to hold off on issuing arrest warrants this evening. I don't know, because again, you have a lot of other property to divvy up and things to do. And that seems to have just been granted earlier this year. I'm not going to make any determination on the estate issues because you have a probate issue. And I would maybe suggest that you take that up specifically with the probate court. I don't know if this is the appropriate forum so that the probate court can be able to appropriately address the fact that she's in there, but she also has an interest in everything that's there. And I'm also concerned because you got your rights. I'm not going to get into that because I think that becomes a probate issue and I don't want to get into that. But what I do have, I have people who are backing a property that makes me believe that this may be more appropriate or a civil matter before it comes to me for a criminal adjudication. And so because of that, I'm not going to issue an arrest warrant this evening. Now, Ms. Maddox, that does not mean that you do not have the rights to evict these people. It does not mean that you don't have a right to call officers. But again, as far as all of the evidence that has been presented to me this evening, I don't have enough clear evidence of all that's going on to say confidently that them being arrested for criminal trespass is the appropriate decision. And so that's not what I'm going to do. You can take it up with the probate court or the civil matter. But as far as this criminal warrant application hearing is concerned, I'm not going to grant that this evening because I don't meet with the totality of the evidence meets probable cause. And that's going to be the court's order. But let me clear it up with Miss Maddox, the sister, Miss Campbellman. Let me be very clear. You're not the executive. You do not have the right to prevent your sister from selling this property. She's got the right to do that as a matter of what this document says. You being in possession of the property at this current moment, I can't say specifically if it's criminal or civil because of all of the issues that have been taking place. But with all that being said, I always remind people, you can be arrested for making waste. And so in the event that you destroy this property, you could have a serious, serious consequence against you beyond arrest. And so I will state that, and that will be my conclusion to this particular matter. I really hope and pray that you guys get it resolved because honestly, family issues are really best settled between the family. But if they can't be, I am happy to send people to jail, but that's not what I will be doing this evening. And that will be